Good afternoon, folks. Welcome back to the Divided States of America show. I appreciate you all tuning in. We're here weekdays, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitter. I'm your host, Marlon Gardenera. I welcome you all to the show. Today, we're going to be viewer-driven. Talk to a friend on Facebook. I see posts on Facebook every day. I love Facebook. You know I love politics. I love responding. You know I love challenging ideas and people. But today we're going to do where we're going to work on where we're going with this show, which is bringing people on live to have real discussions. And we're going to get started with that right now. It's time. Let's go, folks.
Welcome to the Divided States of America show, where your host, Marlon Gardenera, takes on the most divisive issues in our divided nation. We'll sort through the best and worst of politics and culture, asking questions and looking for answers that our two-ring, two-party circus has failed to provide. And here is your host, Marlon Gardenera.
Again, thank you for tuning back into the show. Here weekdays, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Share it with friends and family. Let them know we're here trying to talk to you, real people, real discussions. This is not a biased, one-sided, I want a bunch of people who I can preach to who already agree with me. This is an opportunity for us to have deliberate, intentional discussions about how we become we the people,
and
not
here
me
is
the
your
people,
host,
which is
Gardenera.
what we've been for so long. Purely we the people, not me the people. We talked yesterday briefly about guns, our gun culture, our gun climate, all the things that are happening in our country. I shared with you a story out of Indianapolis where an armed bystander was credited with preventing the deaths of people in a mall. The shooter got off 24 shots, killed 3, and the innocent bystander, a 22-year-old, stepped in and was a hero. And I want to be one of the people that commend that young man for being a hero. He is. There's no question. And I challenged the idea yesterday that if we as a country thought that more people with guns would be a part of the solution. I think we went on to another story briefly, talking about a young man in Missouri. He saw at a gas station, he went to go to the restroom. He saw there was something going on inside. He realized that someone had walked in, grabbed a clerk behind the counter, put a knife to their neck, and he went in and he eliminated that threat. There are probably thousands and thousands of examples every year. We don't hear about each and every one of them. The stories are localized and the situations are unique, but we should hear about it. I have no problem with heroes. I have no problems with heroes with guns. But what I suggested yesterday is maybe the idea of more people carrying concealed weapons should be associated with more training, more certification, insurance, and a list of other things that might make us all safer as we consider that as one of the options to deal with our current gun climate, gun culture, and quite frankly, the deaths of school children. And a lot of my motivation, a lot of my disgust and frustration comes from, quite frankly, school children. Our gun culture, to me, is out of hand, and I don't know that it's ever going to change unless we are able to have real discussions to make that move forward. Having said that, I was on Facebook and I was commenting about another article posted. This one came in a local paper. It was about the same story, and the gentleman who commented on it in this one is going to join us on the show today. But he wrote, "American hero shoots this guy 8 times after the shooter got 24 shots off in 15 seconds. What would have happened without the hero there?" Next question is Libs. Hello. And I think this man was looking for a response. So we're going to do what we hope to do very often in the show, and that is bring on people who've got real questions. So today we've got Toby Creighton on. Toby, how you doing?
Hi, Marlon. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good.
Can you hear me okay?
I can. I think I'm going to turn down your volume just a little bit just to get you in there clearly. I appreciate you.
By the way, sorry, Mark. We've never got a chance to meet. We've gone back and forth a lot. Thank you for what you did with this youth sports before we get into our maybe a little bit of a disagreement. What you did with that, you're a hero, my friend, and I'm never going to forget what you did. So thank you. And you and your son, who's an Aztec, by the way, go Aztec.
He is.
I wanted to give you some props first. That's what made me start following you, because you are a man who stood up and did something that a lot of people don't have the guts to do. And I think we're going to talk about things that I think there's some gutsy things we need to do with gun control. And I think you're the kind of guy who is open-minded enough to listen to some ideas that you've probably never heard before.
Well, that is the point of this show. And while I appreciate your thanks, we'll get into that topic. I don't know that we've covered that thoroughly here on the program. I will use it to say this. If I had to identify politically, I am slightly left of center. But the action you're talking about was me going head on with a Democrat. I realized that I can't be identified solely by a party. I can't be identified by all of the characteristics, or even the litmus test that most people probably would have to pass in order to be, truly part of any particular party one way or the other. I'll cross the aisle. I don't care what the issue is. It just has to matter to enough people. I hope that this show can take on real issues like that in the future. And I think the best way, though, to do it is to have real conversations. So, again, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I enjoy going back and forth with you. I won't lie. And I enjoy it because you're respectful and thoughtful. And while we have differences, we can get through conversations. And I even noticed that, you pull quite a few people who also like to engage. On this particular issue, you posted an article about a hero. What made you put that up?
Well, I think I may have mentioned to you on the thing that I'm a concealed carry weapon person as well. And I don't know if I would have had the guts to do what that guy did. So I was trying to put myself in his shoes, and I was reading that article, and I read it on the news, and it's actually made the news, which was shocking enough because the media never puts this stuff in the news. You mentioned in your monologue that you don't hear about these. This happens thousands of times a year, like you mentioned. Why don't we ever hear about it? And you know the answer to this because the media doesn't want us to know about it because it tells a different narrative than what they're selling to the American people. And
hold on. When you say media, I have one question, and I'll have questions as we go because I know we have differences in opinions, and I want yours to be front and center. I want yours to be out there for people because there are going to be quite a few people who relate to exactly what you're saying. When you say media, you're not excluding Fox or Tucker Carlson or Blaze Media. You're not including the considerable number of outlets that have absolutely no problem reaching directly into conservative homes. Are you?
No, I'm not. No, I'll make it clear.
Okay.
I'm not. I would not exclude. And when I say the media, I mean the vast majority of the media out there has a slanted view of gun control and gun legislation. That is my opinion. Now, I agree Fox is certainly more towards my belief, but even so, they don't report. They didn't report on this until the day after. It wasn't headline news. CNN actually put it on, which was shocking. So I'm hopeful that there's actually going to be a little bit more of this, hey, you know what? There is a solution that the media and other people haven't thought of when it comes to solving mass shootings. I'm not talking about gun violence. I'm talking about stopping or limiting. It can't be stopped, but limiting mass shooting events. That's what I think you and I can agree on a path to do it. But to say there's a way to stop mass shootings, no, there's not. And there just isn't. And we can all just sit around here and say kumbaya that there is. There isn't. We're in a free society. There's 350 million guns out there. You can't gather them all. So you can't literally stop it. You can minimize it. And you can make it less, like this guy yesterday or 2 days ago in that mall. 15 seconds, 24 shots. Do that math. The police don't show up for at least 3 to 5 minutes minimum. How many more shots does he get off? It's all a matter of how much ammunition he brought. 5 people shot in 15 seconds. That's 20 in a minute, right? I think.
Yeah,
close to
it is.
And this guy took him out with 8 shots. Obviously, a pretty good shot. 8 shots, and saved. I don't know, Marlon. I don't know. You and I could guess how many. I'm just saying that's one part of the way to minimize mass shootings. But I'm sorry it took so long to answer your question.
No. When I brought that issue up yesterday, and I looked at it because I don't have all the answers, and we're not making enough progress. I said, is that a viable solution for more people to have guns? Would that minimize what's going on? And then I suggested, because I can read the Constitution, it does say well regulated. Would we be better off with more guns in more hands, more concealed weapons, more people in position to defend others in, let's say, a mass shooting? But that go along with training, or that go along with measures to make sure that they're as best equipped to do what these heroes did. Because to me, the police have a hard time differentiating between a gun and not a gun. The police shoot unarmed people. The police, with training and certification and testing and research and all of the steps and things that they go through, they still have a difficult time making sure they do what's important, which is, quite frankly, to make sure they get home to their families every night. But deciphering between he was reaching for something, but he came out with nothing, and now he's dead. If we had more civilians with weapons, wouldn't you be concerned about the mistakes we would make if we were walking around with concealed weapons and felt like it was our obligation to police our society?
Yeah, the answer is, and I'll always answer directly, and that's another thing I appreciate about you. You answer questions directly, which is great. So many times I talk to people, and it's you ask a question and they try to dodge and weave. I'll answer it flat out. There would be an increase in that type of thing. There's just no doubt. The concealed weapon training is, it's not super difficult. I mean, they do put you through a pretty good training, and I've done it. But no, more guns in the hands of civilians will mean an offset. That type of scenario will happen. It will. However, when I decide in my mind, what are we better off having, I believe that the trade-off is well worth it, and it's not even close. To have a possibility of the wrong person getting shot or a police officer shooting somebody with a concealed carry, that type of thing will happen. However, I honestly believe the numbers match up that while that will happen, the number of lives saved will be multiple times more than what you're suggesting might happen.
So I'm not an expert. I don't know the facts. I can't bear that out to determine whether it makes sense. But you brought up a point that I didn't even think of. Carrying a concealed weapon certainly increases the odds of you being killed by the police for their safety, and not being able to differentiate between the two. We know cops identify themselves, undercover or not, as a way to say, hey, wait a minute, before something like that happens. I'm just thinking, the Wild West. I'm thinking road rage. I'm thinking a street fight. I'm thinking, why are you looking at my girlfriend? I'm thinking, all of the conflicts that we have, and the fact that it's not like the old days where, you used to put them up and two folks would just go at it and they'd settle the score and they'd move on. I just can't imagine a world where I thought, there's a really good chance that everybody in this room is carrying a gun. And while it certainly might lower tempers, it might get people to show some more restraint. When they don't, I just worry it would be more deadly. But don't get me wrong. I too was willing to explore the idea that if more people have guns, maybe we'd be safer. I thought if the requirements for being able to carry that concealed weapon were higher and did a better job of preparing people, because again, the cops have a hard time. Civilians scare me in general. Can you imagine being in an uncomfortable situation with a room full of people that you don't trust with guns? I mean, can you imagine?
Are you aware, and I don't know if you are or not, so I'll help you, or I'll ask you. Are you aware of what it takes to get a concealed carry permit?
Well, I know it depends on which state you're in. I talked to Robert Hubbard.
California.
Sure. I know California is incredibly difficult. Yes.
So the training, I'll tell you the one thing, the only really important thing I remember out of the training that really stuck with me is call 911. That's all they keep telling you I'm telling you, they say, listen, call the police. If you hear gunfire, run away. Go the other direction, just like you would. Don't pull your gun. Go call the cops. Now, when you are threatened, and I mean threatened, that's a different situation. Pull your gun, do your thing. If you hear gunfire, you're not a cop. Run away, call the police. That's what I think a lot of people don't understand about this training is they do not want you to shoot. They have no interest in you pulling your gun unless you or someone right next to you is in danger and you have no other option. It's beaten into your head. That's the training you get. Marlon, there's only 7,000 concealed carry permits in San Diego County. There's 2.4 million people that live in San Diego County. Do that math. That 7,000 people are some of the best trained and thinking differently than the other 2.2, whatever number it is. My job is to keep myself safe and people around me safe within my area. Otherwise, go the other way. And that's what I don't think people really get.
Well, I'll be honest. I'll take some comfort in that they do try to reemphasize you're not a cop. That's not your job. It's not your role. Call 911. Get out. I appreciate that. I also appreciate to some degree that there are only 7,000. Although while I certainly understand the potential for more, and actually don't have a problem with it, provided it comes with enough training that 7,000 doesn't become the source of a new crime wave. And I would imagine, based on the media, and if they are in fact biased, they would be looking for people with CCWs that abuse that right. So, and they're clearly not there to any significant degree, or I do think we actually would hear about it. It's just that general fear. I said on an episode maybe a week or so ago, I have guns. I have some training. I am equipped to defend myself, defend my family. But my only fear is as an officer. And I even thought about it after. I think I'm starting to discriminate. As you can imagine, I have a problem with people who look at me and say he's black, so therefore X, Y, and Z. I started to think, when I see an officer, I have a whole set of questions in my head. And I thought about it, and I felt bad, because I'm not disrespectful. I certainly wouldn't keep them from any opportunities. I wouldn't not hire a cop. I would not be, all the things that go with discrimination aren't going to happen between me and an officer. But I did have a thought, a judgment, an initial reaction just upon appearance. It's kind of like being black. I joked with a cop friend of mine, hey, buddy, now you know what racism looks like. People literally judge you from your external appearance. They have a full-blown opinion, and they don't know anything about you. So, again, cops with the training, with the experience, it's just scary. I'll be honest, it's just scary. Now, you and I both know that we could have concealed carry without permits all over the country. That's an issue. When we started going back and forth on this, the thing that obviously got me was the comment, libs. There have got to be, and we'll get back to guns in just a second, there have got to be some libs, some liberals in your life who you think have done good for you or us. There has to be. There's just nothing in me that makes me think that you have written us all off. And I say us, slightly left of center, don't want to be there, prefer to be a centrist. There's got to be some value in somebody like me.
I have a saying, and I really believe it. And I know this is where we're going to diverge a little bit, and it's respectful, but I always honestly think, and I say it almost as a joke, but to me, liberalism is a true mental disorder. And I know it's funny, right? But I get it, and people laugh.
Just let me laugh. Let me get through my reaction.
I really, truly believe that anybody with a functioning brain wouldn't come up with solutions to problems that these folks come up with. And I'm not talking about, Marlon, the middle guy in the world like you. I really think that you're take you out of it. I'm talking about liberals, and I'm talking, they're loony. There's something, they can't think this illogically in life. For example, let me just give you, we're talking about gun control. We're talking about guns. To go through these same ridiculous ideas about gun control over and over and over and over again, Sandy Hook to this, to that, nothing changes ever, we agree. Mass shootings continuing and escalating. Not Democrats, liberals. I don't put Democrats with liberals, by the way. Liberals go out with their little picket signs and their goofy ideas about banning guns and doing things like high capacity magazines and buyback program. They're just, nothing is going to work like that. It's impossible. You need to stop talking about things that couldn't possibly work and start thinking about things that could work, that we need to try, that might scare you a bit.
Before we go too far, let me challenge it in one way. I call it logic. I don't call myself a liberal, but I want to represent them for the moment. The assault weapons ban, it lasted 10 years. There were less mass shootings, less production, less guns distributed into the market. Certainly not the gun climate we're in today. Do you think, even though that certainly is a liberal cry, that is illogical, didn't statistically sort of prove itself out and not make an actual difference for people?
Well, while I agree with your assertion that the gun violence rate, or whatever I think you mentioned it, mass shootings. I don't know if the number of mass shootings went down in those 10 years. I don't know. I don't know if you know. But I do agree with you, and we talked about this on Facebook. I really don't have a problem as a true conservative with re-implementing that. I really don't. I don't think it's going to stop what we're talking about, which I'm still focused on mass shootings.
Hey, Toby, is that a liberal idea floating around in your head? Are you okay?
Well, no, it's a logical idea.
The two can work together. You can be liberal and logical, maybe just at times, but it can happen.
But you're not liberal. You think you say I'm left, you're defending them. I get it. But a liberal would say, this is what they would say, and why I think it's a mental disorder. They would say ban them and arrest anybody who has them and make them turn them in and all this stuff and get them off the streets. That's just not ever going to happen. And that's the stuff that drives me crazy.
So let me ask you this. If you're trying to target progress one way or the other, I don't care what direction you want to go. How do you throw out all of the ideas and expect to go in any one direction? And please, I hate the all or nothing approach. I don't like either extreme. I think both extremes are ridiculous, selfish, arrogant. Anybody who thinks my way is the only way, this is the way it has to be, to hell with everybody else, it's the most unproductive thing you can imagine. I call it the U.S. government. It's all we do, day after day after day. It's the point of the show, to be able to talk past, well, I'm with them and I'm with them, so there's nothing that can happen. So the idea that, it's a mental disorder, I'm going to guess that liberals have done some things in your life that, thank goodness they had that disorder. It worked out for you. Of course, I don't think they have a mental disorder. Having said that, if you don't set a goal that's further out than you think you can reach, how could you ever get there? And how do you ignore something like Japan? 14 gun deaths, was it this year or the last 4? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how we phrase that. It isn't logical to think that isn't better in general. I agree it would be really challenging to get there, but you can't abandon an ideal like 14 gun shootings in their country. Can you imagine that here in America?
No, it's not. It's never going to happen. That's why I don't focus on it. I don't waste my breath thinking about pie in the sky. America is different, as we know, than every other country in this world, good or bad. We have a lot more gun violence, but we also have the greatest court system and the greatest country. We have so many things that are better than everywhere else that, we have some things that aren't as well. And I'm not going to focus on something that we can't ever achieve. I can come up with, and I will suggest something to you whenever you're ready, of a bipartisan, an idea that I think even my left friends would like, not liberals, because they're almost impossible to talk to. I'm talking about guys like you that are going to literally, people like you that are middle left are going to drive this and solve this. Not guys like me who are way over here, or the left, or the loony left. They're not going to do it. It's going to be that 40% of guys like you. Now, let me run it by you, because I'm curious. I just ran my ideas by my employee out there who's definitely left of center. And I said, I'm going on this thing and I'm going to talk to Marlon.
Now, hold on, Toby. Hold on. Is your employee, and careful, you're probably owner, HR, and everything else. Is your employer mentally impaired?
No. She's not a liberal. She's left of center. She's you.
Left of center. Oh, I got you. I got you.
She's not a liberal. She's you.
Okay.
And that's why I love bouncing things off people like her and you, because I can talk to you people. You guys are so realistic and you're good and you're not just out there and gone. Talking to a liberal is like talking to a wall, and I can't stand it. I like talking to you and her and people that are open-minded to different ideas, and that's you. And you think maybe that I'm not. I am. I just told you that I'm okay with banning assault weapons. How many conservatives are going to say that? I am. I don't see the logic. I just know we can't gather them in, and that's where I diverge from my left friends. We can get the guns back. No, you can't. You can't. So stop. Just stop the conversation, and let's go to solutions.
All right. You posted a solution. You posted a solution. I'm going to put it up on the screen.
Well, I got more to it too, by the way.
Oh well, let's put up what I know already. I'm going to read them out, and then you come back and you help clear it up for us. you have a 4-part plan, and you said it on Facebook. Look at my plan. Number 1, carry a gun illegally, life in prison. We'll get back to it. Number 2, use a gun to commit any crime, death penalty. Number 3, conceal carry for anyone who can pass a background check and testing and training. And number 4, buy back assault rifles and ban future sales. And you asked me if it was okay. Left of center, liberal, call me whatever you want. Some of them seem a little harsh, but your take on your solution to our gun culture, our gun issue in America.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, to the average guy, the person who hasn't really thought, they've been in it. The average person has been inundated with so much false information about how we solve mass shootings. And when they see my 4-point plan there, they freak out because they think, oh my God, I've never heard this before. And they just don't sit back and think logically again, is how do we stop human behavior? There's only been 2 ways in the history of mankind: carrot, stick. That's it. With your kids, with everything in your life, you either do it with a carrot, or you do it with a stick, or you do it with a little bit of both. That plan that you just showed, that I 100% agree with, is a combination of the 2. It will stop the regular criminal, let's call him, not the loony nut case with the 50, capacity magazine who wants to go in there and spray a school. It's not going to stop that guy. I agree. Okay. Not by itself, except for one part of it, which we'll get to. But it is going to stop the armed robber. It is going to stop the husband who beats his wife and then points a gun at him. It is going to stop the person carrying an illegal weapon on the street as soon as this starts getting enforced, because then word gets around that, they're not playing. The state of California is putting people to death for using a gun in a crime. We should not carry a gun anymore. It will change behavior. And here's the best part. This is something that can be done with a signature by the governor. It doesn't need to run through the whole world. It doesn't have to be on a proposition. The governor of the state of California could sign this. That same guy, who by the way, is a liberal and has a mental disorder, banned death penalties. He banned death penalties in California when the state of California, the voters voted it in, as you know, about 20 years ago. The voters overwhelmingly voted for death penalty, and he unilaterally stopped it. Now, you, as a good middle-of-the-road guy, you can't stand for somebody saying, I don't like it, even though the voters do, and he banned it. So it's going to take a governor with some guts.
Well, it would take about 3 weeks worth of episodes for us to go and address all of the issues where the voters feel one way and government officials change it. That's common. No, I don't necessarily like the idea or the concept. No, I do not like the death penalty because we kill innocent people and we let innocent people go on a regular basis. And until we can perfect that, I'm not really in favor of state-sponsored killing of innocent people. Another show, another issue. I'll bring you back for that one. But having said that, your first solution is or your second solution is death penalty for anyone who commits a crime. Now, does that seem more realistic than trying to buy back every AR-15 out in the street?
In California, it's probably about the same. I think in different states would probably be more.
What if it looked like this? California bans AR-15s, assault rifles, rifles like that. I can't stand when people start getting into the definitions. You don't even know what that is. You're right. I don't. Let's leave it at the layperson's definition. A weapon that can be used with a high-capacity magazine and kill lots of people in a really, really short amount of time. And I kind of equate that to a grenade. You throw a grenade into a crowd, there's going to be a problem. You can't buy grenades because we don't want people throwing them into a crowd, causing a lot of problems. So they just take this very basic idea. If California banned weapons like AR-15s, and they said, we'll buy it back and we'll give you top dollar. We'll give, this is, carrot and a stick. Here's the carrot. We'll give you more for it than you paid for it to begin with because they're no longer legal in this state. While I understand there'll be Second Amendment challenges and due process, and that all should occur, that all should happen. If you get caught with an AR-15 after that, I think the penalty should be quite severe. Do I think it should equate to life in prison? Okay, I think we have that Fourth Amendment, the cruel and unusual punishment, but it should be severe enough that a person thinks I got to keep this thing hidden. And you're right; it only would be the person who is mentally crazy and, quite frankly, on a suicide mission, and they could care less what the laws are and what's going to happen. Does that make sense? California, buy it back. If you have one, you serve 10 years.
Well, yeah, but that 4-point has to be all 4 points because we conservatives are saying to me, let's just say me, I'll represent the conservatives. We're saying, okay, you know what? We'll meet you halfway. I don't necessarily agree at all with a ban on assault weapons. However, it's not a big enough deal to me to fight. If I can get you guys, the left, to move to a little bit more crime and punishment like we used to have, and along with a little bit of giving on the gun part of it, I think that mixture. Now, if you don't, and I get it, you could be saying life in prison is pretty harsh. Well, I don't think it is. If we really
from time to time, we're going to lose people. You saw the 4-part plan. I'm going to put it back up there. I'm sure he's going to work to get himself back online pretty quickly. Toby suggested, number 1, carry a gun illegally, life in prison. Well, you already heard. I think the cruel and unusual punishment is probably going to be a factor. We've got Toby back on. He's having some difficulties, but I think life in prison is probably going to be a little bit harsh. But how do people feel about the idea of significant prison sentences for people with arms? I know when we passed the crime bill back in 92, and yes, Biden was for it, and Democrats were all behind it, we saw the unintended consequences of it, and that potential third strike for stealing a pack of bubble gum, and all of the crazy things that happen. Where is that balance if Toby's first solution was carry a gun, life in prison, was carry something illegal, and there is a significant prison term? What's the balance? What's the middle in there? And Toby, I heard you just say, if you don't do it all, it may not be effective. But I think that's about as pie in the sky, expecting somebody to go to jail for life, as it is to get, let's say there's 350 million guns, get 250 million of them back. People just they want the crime to match.
What's more pie in this? What's more pie in this?
All right. Toby's having some issues. I'm going to move on to the next issue on his list. Use of gun control to commit and use a gun to commit any crime, and you end up with the death penalty. I've already said I have an issue with the death penalty anyway, so that's probably going to be an issue. I'm here. Death penalty. I don't agree with it in principle. I don't agree with Governor Newsom just because I typically don't agree with Governor Newsom. If he yields the power to eliminate it or have it reviewed or have his administration go through whatever process they want to, that's the power he has. I don't like having to wait 4 years to remove someone if they do something that doesn't make sense or works against the public. But I cannot be a part of state-sponsored killing of innocent people. And we don't need to debate that. It happens. I know this because somewhat regularly people are released from jail because they could not have done it. They didn't do it. It wasn't them. It's not their DNA. So the idea that they'd go through that whole process and end up dead sounds crazy. So you can already imagine how I feel about number 2. Use a gun to commit a crime, death penalty.
I get that. But remember, this is the type of thing that Charles Barkley had a saying, and I bet you love Charles Barkley. You just have to. Who doesn't love him?
He's terrible.
He goes, talking about dating his daughter. He said, you know what he said? He said, well, the first one comes over, you kill the first one, and word gets out. That's what Charles Barkley said. It's a great line, right? Now, think about it. If this is implemented and it's actually followed through on, you're not going to be doing it very often because the behavior is going to naturally change. And I know you're anti-death penalty, and I appreciate that. That's fine. We're not going to debate that. But the thing is, there is a reason, in my opinion, why it doesn't deter crime very well. And it's because, and I'm a criminal justice major, by the way, and I read a lot of crime stuff, and More Guns, Less Crime, which is a book you should probably write that down. More Guns, Less Crime by John Lott Jr. It's all statistics, FBI statistics. It's fantastic. And it's eye-opening, and I would appreciate it if you would read that book. It's very
Wrote it down. I'll get to that. All right, I'm going to move on to the next on the stream, and I'm going to cut this short. We want to make sure his connection is good and he's in position to finish this off. Toby, I'm adding you back. We're going to get through this so we don't have to worry about the connection. You're on the death penalty. You just told me about More Guns, Less Crime. I'm going to read it. I can assure you.
John Lott Jr.
John Locke Jr., I assure you I will read that. Next on your list, concealed carry for anyone who could pass a background check, testing, and training. You realize you're bucking the system as much as any conservative or Republican or anybody left to right of center. You aren't conforming. How would that work?
Why is that not conforming? How does that not? I mean, I'm not trying to conform. First of all.
Well, that's good. That's good. Hey, here's the reality. The reason we don't make progress with anyone's idea is because the opposition and the fact that we have two parties that you have to associate with one or the other, primarily if you want to feel like you're in any position of power or feel like your voice is being heard to any degree. And we take the whole alphabet, A to Z for the left and A to Z for the right. And essentially, because there's only two parties, you have to accept all A through Z and identify as this. And if you don't, you certainly see what's happening right now. If someone doesn't pass the litmus test of supporting Trump, supporting a lie, being against abortion, not wanting any controls on guns, they're isolated. They're thrown out. They're a pariah in their own party. So most people don't have the actual courage to do it. So when I say, you're jumping outside the box, I appreciate that you don't want to conform. I wish more people felt like that. And the only thing I could say to match up you saying you don't want to conform is, I wish you didn't write off a whole entire group of people, because there are some really, really, really logical ones who really made a difference in the world. And I think the fact that people disagree so vehemently keeps us from getting anything done. Because I'm looking at your plan, and while I think many parts of it are extreme, I also think parts of it make absolute sense. Carry a gun illegally, no, not life in prison, but a significant prison term that keeps me from having to worry about you and your willingness to break the law with a tool that destroys. I am with you, Toby. That's the part of the discussion. It's unfortunate that if I identified as a liberal, maybe we wouldn't be having it because you'd write me off, but I agree. Use a gun to commit any crime, death penalty? No. Severe, significant penalty for no other reason, not your rehabilitation. I could care less about your rehabilitation. I only care that you aren't in position to do that again to me, my family, the people I care about, the people in my community, the people in this country who get up and go to work every day and want to live. I'm with you on number 2. You just have to take the life in prison and death penalty part off. Conceal carry for anyone who passes a background check, testing, and training. If that were real, and by real, I mean real testing and real training, we get closer, because I'm not for a gun ban. I'm not. For better or worse, we are a free society. We really are. We abuse that freedom, and we take it so far that the freedom starts to be bad. And I think school children being slaughtered is emblematic of our freedoms gone too far. And then the last one you put on there, buy back assault rifles and ban future sales. Well, I was there before you started talking. I can't thank you enough for adding it to your list. Now listen,
it was you. I was going to go with the top 3, but then I thought to myself, I can't just ask for what a conservative would want. I got to throw something in there for the middle of the road guys. Again, I didn't call you a liberal because you're not. You're too well thought out. You're too open-minded. You're not. You don't have a mental disorder.
You know what? You're challenging me. You are challenging me. You know what I want to do right now? You know what I want to do? In this day and age of identifying as any damn thing you want, and I don't have a problem with it. As long as that identification doesn't walk in my house and cause a problem, I don't care who you are, who you want to be. Right now, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. It's only going to be 30 seconds, but I'm doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners of the Divided States of America show, right now I am identifying as a liberal, just for Toby.
Yeah, you got to do a lot more than that. You have to act a different way. You're too smart. It just doesn't work. Sorry, my friend.
All right, I'm going to turn this into a joy story. And Toby, the show is new, and I need more of you and more people with differing opinions. You don't qualify. You're already kicked out of the club. If your conservative buddies see you today, you're going to have some issues. But you seem like a strong enough guy to take those issues on and let those guys know, hey, look, folks, it ain't all or nothing. It's never going to work that way either. That too is pie in the sky. I really appreciate that. And it's probably the reason we're able to have productive discussions online. Being able to translate that here is awesome to me, because I think you would agree, whatever side of the media you pay attention to, most of them are talking to their audience and their audience alone. And quite frankly, if it was up to me, I would rarely talk to people left of center, if for no other reason for them to explain things we don't understand. And I would really want to talk to people that I don't understand. And I don't understand the extremes on either side. I appreciate you. I appreciate your approach. Let me ask you this. You said you can't control human behavior. I agree. We're going to be whatever we're going to be. Do you think we have an obligation, whether it be for the sake of public safety or just school children, to assert our control over the tools they use for mass destruction?
Well, you go into the old saying of the newspaper headlines are, SUV kills pedestrian. Well, an SUV didn't kill a pedestrian. It was the person driving the SUV that killed the pedestrian. He's probably drunk. So when you see, handguns are causing, murders, and assault rifles are causing murders, they're inanimate objects. So I hate hearing that from the left all the time.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I was in Vegas 2 weeks ago. I don't know if the last time you've been to Vegas, if you've been to
I was
Vegas.
there 2 weeks ago. I was probably there when you were there.
You probably gave me
Right
COVID.
before 4th of July.
You probably gave me COVID. We need to talk. So was I. Right before the 4th.
Well, I was definitely rolling around without a mask. You can count on that.
Yeah, I'm sure. You noticed the Strip. There are no longer streets on the Strip that aren't protected by big concrete pylons that keep that drunk driver in an SUV from intentionally or unintentionally ripping themselves off into the crowd and killing people. That is asserting our authority to protect ourselves from tools, and in that case, a tool not designed to kill people, but a tool. They're everywhere. You saw it. It's unavoidable. Why wouldn't we have that same logical, liberal or not, logical approach to asserting our control over the tool, a gun, which really, quite frankly, only has one purpose: to kill? What do you can't duck out in the center of a tough question. I know Toby's having some connection problems. I'm going to bring Toby right back on. I see he's trying to work through that.
I'm here.
Yeah, you're not ducking out on that one.
I've never ducked out. I don't know.
I'm kidding.
No, let me finish. So, are you saying? I don't think you're saying that there aren't any gun control laws out there, right?
I'm saying in Sandy Hook and Uvalde and Parkland, I'm saying there's not enough.
Well, I don't know.
I want to cut you off there because that was the best answer you could give me.
I don't think
no answer.
Anything else. I don't think there's there are other answers, and I have a couple I know you wouldn't like. I don't know if you want to hear them. I'm not going to.
Quickly, sure.
I've run them by people, but people look at me like, how can you say things like this? But I'm like, because it's something that can happen in Colorado.
Listen, hold on. I'm going to say something that it makes me crazy. My wife is a therapist. So for 22 years, I've been essentially paying for therapy that I did not request. I've asked to get a referral to another therapist. She won't do it. If it's a cry for help, you're supposed to blink twice if you need help. I'm blinking. I want everybody to see. No, I love my wife. She's awesome. The shrinks of the world use this term projecting. You keep calling libs mentally challenged. Are you about to come across
mentally ill?
Mentally ill. Are you about when you tell me these two other ideas? Are you about to come across as mentally ill? I'm just wondering before you.
No. Marlon, no, this is real life in Colorado. Okay. Real life. After Columbine, a company was formed, and I can't think of the name of it because I'm not that. They actually train teachers and employees of the school districts in Colorado now to carry weapons in the school. I know that scares the liberals. Oh my God, teachers have guns. They're going to kill children. That's not what it is. There hasn't been another shooting in Colorado since Columbine, which I think was 15 years ago, if my memory's no longer, 20-something years ago. Hasn't been a mass shooting since. Is one reason? I don't know. However, they formed a company. Half the school districts in Colorado use the company now, and it's an option for teachers to carry weapons. They also have a program, and not just in Colorado, but in other states, that have retired police and retired military on campus all day long with weapons, walking around the school 8 hours a day and taking turns. That's the type of out-of-the-box thinking that we have to use instead of this crap that we're listening to now. Nobody wants to talk about it because they're all scared of guns. That's my theory. People are afraid of guns. They don't want anybody carrying them because they're afraid of them. Until we get over this afraid of gun thing, we just can't solve this problem. I mean, think about what Colorado's doing. It's a fact. You can look that up too.
Well, I'll say this in response to that. First, in defense of teachers, I'm not a big union guy. I don't always love the teachers union. I don't always understand the focus and the purpose. I don't always understand the allocation of dollars. I don't always understand the priorities, but I never waver in my love and support for teachers, the people who we trust to spend 6+ hours a day with our children, giving them more information than, quite frankly, we spend time giving to some degree, at least deliberate teaching, learning, testing, reviewing, on and on and on, the commitment that they make to our kids. Do I think they have enough burdens on their hands to not determine if little Mikey is having a mental breakdown or if he's in a suicidal rage. Just not. I mean, our police aren't qualified to do that. I can't imagine asking a teacher to do that. Now, there may be people who want to. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Marlon, if little Mikey walks in with a trench coat and an AR-15, he's not having a breakdown. He needs to go down. And I'm not saying that you have to force a teacher to carry guns.
Sure,
Nobody forces them. You give them the option. They're concealed. Nobody knows who's got one. That's the point
and let me be honest. I agree. I volunteer in a church, and I profile people. I profile them. I don't say professionally because I'm a volunteer, but I profile. If you walk in the church with a trench coat on a hot day with sunglasses or a hood, my eyes are on you, and we're going to draw some attention to you. We're going to make sure.
Tatted up with all kinds of weird. Look. It's
well,
okay.
Yeah, sure. I have my opinion, and I'm going to try to get some assurances that I'm safe, you're comfortable. We want you here. Yes, you don't look as we would expect you to, but you are absolutely welcome here. We just want a comfort level for all people in this, like you would if you want somebody coming into your home. I don't disagree with that. My concern isn't, though, that the guy who walks in with a trench coat, because that's far and few between. And it's not just Colorado. There are some states there haven't been a mass shooting. So I can't completely attribute it to the program you're talking about, because, again, in some places it just doesn't happen at all. My concern is the young black boy, 14 years old. Dad was killed a couple of days ago. Mom's on drugs. And I hate it that I said black, because I don't want, to give the impression that that's the scenario because they're black. It's not. But I'm using black for a more specific reason. Often viewed as aggressive, often viewed as a threat. There's often a predetermined bias when dealing with a person that's black, no different than, like I said, for some people when they see a cop's uniform, they have a predetermination. I'm not worried about the trench coat guy that needs to be put down. I'm worried about the thing that happens every day in classrooms where a kid has a mental breakdown. He loses it. He loses it. And he isn't even armed and not thinking or prepared to kill anybody. But a teacher now has to decipher, is my life being threatened? Is someone else's life being threatened? And now they're in a situation where if they get it wrong, the only murderer in the room is them.
Well,
that's and that would just be, get teachers pencils, get them better pay, get them support, get them a gun.
Really, is that really something that I'm talking about?
The scenario I just provided. The scenario I just provided, my guess is, and I don't mean to cut you off, I apologize. My guess is that scenario happens 15,000 high schools in America. I can't imagine how many classes, how many students. My guess is that happens minimum 1,000 times a day. And that shooter does not.
Right. And that one, let's talk about that 1,000 a day or whatever the number is. The person starts going crazy, throwing desks, grabbing students, punching them. There's no weapon involved. It's fists. It might be a ruler, whatever. But there's no gun involved. There's no, that training in Colorado, if you really look at it, and you haven't looked at it, so I'll give you a break. I have. It has nothing to do. It's very similar to the concealed carry training I went to. Call 911. First thing you do, don't be a cop. Save what you can do. Don't run down the hall. That's not what I'm talking about. It's the same as concealed carry. It basically is concealed carry. Somebody comes into your classroom with an AR-15 and starts shooting, you shoot back. Otherwise, get on the phone. Do what you can. I'm not talking about the student that's losing his mind. And I know there's a lot of mental illness, especially after COVID. These people are going crazy, but they don't have a weapon. That scenario, I think, is probably not something you need to worry about.
Well, I'll probably end on this. Again, I said it before. I said it yesterday. The police are trained and they struggle with this. They do this every day. They come upon criminals and people who are dealing with mental issues, people who are in the worst emotional state, people having the worst day of their lives. And even with practice and training and support, they get it wrong. They don't get it wrong all the time, but they get it wrong. And as a black man, anytime I hear about an unarmed black man being killed, I automatically start asking questions. How could you kill somebody who's not armed unless they're, close enough to you to do harm without an arm? I can't imagine posing that same question to a group of teachers who literally just want paper and books, who want parents to trust them to decide what books the kids can actually look at in the library, who want parents to get out of the way and let them teach history as it occurred, not how it makes you feel today. So not to get too far from the gun issue, but teachers have enough challenges that if you added a lethal weapon to their side, dealing with 1,000 kids a day who are in situations that are unthinkable, that are a threat. Quite frankly, they are a threat, but there wasn't a lethal solution to it before, so we don't have kids getting dropped in classrooms. I think that changes if we put a bunch of arms in teachers. But I will say this. I loved when you said there were veterans outside of schools and they were armed. You think I have a problem? You think I have a problem with qualified people stepping up to protect? And if you find liberals who do, point them to me so I can go say to them, listen, words are nice and laws are great, but tactically, safety is safety, and there are steps that we take in every situation to actually be safe, and then there's things we do to talk about it. Talk is cheap. I'm going to end with this. If I'm going to stalk you and re-engage every opportunity I get, and I'm only going to do it. I'm only going to do it because of this. You don't pass the litmus test for a conservative. Trump, you'd be done. You're useless. You're thoughtful, respectful. You're having conversations with people who don't agree with, and we're able to maintain this conversation with absolute respect. You're out. You don't even have a place in your party. Come with me. When you stop categorizing liberals as a block, and remember that some of them want zero gun control, but they want health care. And some of them, they want Trump, not because he is going to carry out their liberal ideas, but because he comes across as strong and willing to do what he says. The point is, it would be a joy story for me when you get back in touch with me and you tell me, okay, listen, I'm going to stop lumping them all together. I'll deal with them one by one. And if I deal with one who's mentally deranged, I will say, I think, in my opinion, I'm Toby, that person is mentally deranged, but they as a whole aren't. And the only reason I say this show is called The Divided States of America. And I've said this several times. I don't think we could make progress on some issues even if we agreed. let me say that again. I don't think we as a nation could make progress on some issues, even when we agree, because we are so polarized and so categorized and so quick to be a part of one and hate the other, that the good that we could find in both is almost non-existent. Oh, well, let me rephrase it. It exists, but people don't even have enough courage to speak up and say it.
I'll push back just a bit on that. And I agree with you that we all seem to be very divided. Now think about this. You and I and some of my friends who jumped in were typing, and there's no context and there's no tone and there's no anything. And then you and I sit down and we have this conversation. I'm the same guy. You're the same guy. We're not that far apart. We're not. I'm very conservative. I think you're left to center, just like you said. We're getting along just swimmingly. You just want to tweak my idea a little bit. I threw in one of yours. That's not a big deal to me. I don't think we're that far off, because the problem is there's none of this. It's all this.
Well, I'll say this. We are that far off if you had eliminated me for my presupposed mental impairment. Does that make sense? Is that fair?
Remember, I'm going to go back to you again. Liberalism is a mental disorder. You, my friend, are not a liberal. You are so far from a liberal. You are not. You are a thinking, smart man who's open. You're not a liberal.
You are one of the nicest offensive people ever.
I've heard that 1,000 times in my life.
You are one of the most pleasant, offensive people I've had an opportunity to talk to.
Thank you.
Toby, I'm going to stalk you. I can't change you. I'm just going to keep making you reveal that you are kinder and more middle of the road than your conservative identification might lead one to believe. So when you're ready to say, okay, Marlon, not all liberals are mentally impaired, you find me. We'll be back on air It could be tomorrow. It could be 5 years from now.
Hey, your
But
ratings
know
are
that I'm going to
go up
stalk
so
you.
much with me that I'm not going to have to change one bit. I'm going to stay true to myself, and you're going to be begging to have me back.
Toby Creighton, thank you. Thank you very much. This is what this show is about, having people with divided opinions, divisive issues, talking it out, seeing if we can make progress. I think you're right. There were some things that we both could agree with, but that can't happen if we don't have the conversation. Thank God you don't identify me as a liberal, or we wouldn't have. Toby, I can't thank you enough. Appreciate you coming to Divided States of America.
Enjoyed it very much, my friend.
Thank you. Okay. Folks, that's the point of the show. Toby and I, at the end of the day, probably wouldn't agree on much, but there are areas where we could. There are areas where we could slide something right in the middle between the two of us, and it would make sense to both of us. There are. And I appreciate that. I appreciate being able to have that conversation. I want to have more of them with you. We're here weekdays, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. We're on YouTube Live, Facebook Live. We're on Twitter. As the show grows, we will do a lot more of that. They may not be an hour long. They may be a 30-second take. It may be a message someone left because they just wanted to get off their chest what was bothering them. For now, you can still do that at the DSA show on Twitter, at the DSA show on Twitter, Facebook groups. Look for the Divided States of America show. And on YouTube, it's easy. DividedStatesOfAmerica.show will take you directly to the page. You'll be able to watch. If you're listening, you already know this. I'm repeating it over and over again because I want you to tell people who you think might be closer to the middle than they put out there. We can't be run by the far left, and we can't be run by the far right. And we can't even be run by the middle if the middle doesn't talk, and if people don't have the courage to step up and say something and get us even remotely trying to get in the same direction. Right now, I still think there's nothing like that happening, and it breaks my heart. I'm going to change gears. Give me 10 seconds. I'm going to change gears, and I'm just going to touch on something because it makes me crazy. I don't get it. But we'll do that in just a second. Appreciate you tuning in to the Divided States of America show. Be right back. All right. I just need a break every once in a while, gather my thoughts, get going in the right direction, work on transitions, touch all the buttons, make it all happen as we grow this show and figure out how to get the message out there. We are a divided nation. There are divisive issues. They don't change until we work together to fix them. We don't go back to we the people until we get past me the people. And me the people always softens up when you actually get on the line and you actually talk to people. Toby was right. We had a guest. We are on opposite sides. He suggested some, I would call them extreme things. Death penalty if you commit a crime with a gun, life in prison if you carry a gun illegally. I would love to see some tighter restrictions. I'd love to make sure we're doing everything we can to save school children's lives. They go there to learn, not die. And that's just the reality in America. And doing nothing is just going to perpetuate that reality. So again, I appreciate Toby coming on the show. I look forward to having all of you have the ability to jump in at any time. I want to quickly just touch on a subject that is close. It's really close to my politics. I was a conservative Republican, first 20 years of my life, Reagan Republican, trickle-down economics, family values, take responsibility for yourself, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. I could recite it all. I was there. I was on the radio doing it. I promoted things that I no longer believe in. I grew up, I evolved, I changed, I matured. Some would say for the better, some would say for the worse. But in any case, I am where I am. I don't even want to change that. I will say this, though. I heard a story this morning on NPR. It was actually the Here and Now show produced by WBUR in Boston. And it was about President Biden releasing $49 million worth of federal money in the form of community grants. Now, this money is released every year. It's not unusual. The only thing that made it different is this is the most money that's put out there, and it had a very specific purpose. There are approximately 4 million children in America who, if they break their arm or they need to get their appendix out or some other medical accident or incident occurs, it would financially ruin their parents. Now, during the last 2 years during the pandemic, the federal government has been promising more funds to states for Medicaid, Medi-Cal, Medicare, all the different programs that are available. The state have been given more money. The only requirement from the federal government, though, was that the states not cut people during this pandemic. While we have this national emergency, this public emergency, states can't use the exact same criteria they use to make sure people qualify like they did in the past. If you qualified during the pandemic or right before it, and your status or income has changed, you are still covered. They don't want anybody in this situation to die because they couldn't get health care. Well, that's going to go away in the fall or early next year, at least according to WBUR Here and Now from NPR. That could go away. And then the rules that govern whether a person is eligible or not for insurance for their children could change. So Biden put $49 million out there to let the 4 million families know there are services available. They're available to you now. There is coverage available for your children. The parents may not always qualify. They may not always meet the criteria, but the kids still have coverage. Now, here's the good news, particularly for those people who hate Obamacare. And I don't know, the 50, 60, 70 attempts to get rid of it that all failed. Even when you had a Republican-controlled Congress and Senate and Trump was in office, they still failed to overturn it. I still don't remember, and I could be wrong, I don't mind being corrected, a full-blown plan, an alternative plan to Obamacare, because ultimately what I want is that people in the richest country in the world get that basic necessity. But for these 4 million people, we're spending $50 million to communicate with them that insurance may be available and that an appendicitis won't destroy your family. It won't make you homeless. It won't keep you from feeding your family when they get home. It won't keep some basic things from happening. It amazes me that we have to spend that much money. But what amazes me more, and here's my question, who is really against those 4 million kids having health care? Stand up, speak up. I hate the two-party system, but right now there's a party who seems to be against the government's efforts to improve that situation. What is the alternative? What would you recommend? How would you handle 4 million children putting their family on the verge of being bankrupt? Part of my politics changed when I started developing conditions. I'm one of those people with pre-existing conditions. I'm one of those people that before Obamacare had a problem buying insurance in the open market. Insurers were doing it for a profit. How can we insure this guy? This guy's going to cost us a fortune and he's only going to pay this amount. We don't want him. Companies literally could deny me. I couldn't pass the physical. I couldn't get into their pool because I'm high risk and I was going to cost them money. If I remember correctly, I had to pay out of pocket for my medications once. I think they're $18,000 a month. Who would want to insure someone who needs $18,000 a month in medication? If I'm in business, I don't want that person for my customer. So I have to ask, am I not worthy of insurance? Is that a situation where I need to pull myself up by my bootstraps to the tune of being able to afford $18,000 a month in prescription medication? Is that the America we want? So the people who are against Obamacare, I too don't want the government running much of anything. I don't trust that the people in every position is qualified to do a good job and that will be better off as a result of it. I'm with you. But what's the alternative? What is the alternative? Again, my question for you, what's the alternative for these 4 million kids and the families that would be ruined? What would you do? Ask yourself. As we enhance our ability to bring on guests, I'll want an answer from people who have different opinions, because it actually is a divisive issue in America, whether or not we cover our people and their health. Can't believe it's still that reality, but it is. Folks, that's it for today. You're watching and or listening to the Divided States of America show. I'm your host, Marlon Gardenera. I am grateful that each of you took the time to listen in today. We'll be back tomorrow. Still debating. I think I want to cover the January 6th hearing tomorrow night. If I do, not quite sure, I'll double up and do the show at noon. But I'll be here at noon to let you know either way. I really appreciate those of you who continue to come back, those of you who comment. Visit us on our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/the DSA show. Find us on Twitter at the DSA show. and find us on YouTube. You can search for the Divided States of America show, or you can go to Divided States of America Divided States of America.show. That's actually a web address. You'll find us there. And if you want to reach me directly, host@thedsashow.com is my email. I look forward to hearing from you all. Look forward to talking more with each of you. Can't thank you enough for tuning in to the Divided States of America show.
Thanks for watching the Divided States of America show. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to the channel and share this video with your family and friends.